On February 10, 2013, a luxury cruise ship in the Gulf of Mexico lost power. Not a flicker, not a brief blackout, a complete electrical failure. The ship was the Carnival Triumph. A fire in its engine room disabled key systems, leaving the vessel without propulsion. With more than 4,000 passengers and crew on board, it began drifting in international waters. Within hours, onboard conditions deteriorated. Toilets stopped functioning as sewage systems failed. Refrigeration went offline. Air conditioning shut down in parts of the ship. Crew members distributed plastic bags so passengers could relieve themselves when bathrooms became unusable. For 5 days, the ship remained adrift before being towed to port. Images of the ordeal spread quickly. But alongside the visible crisis, a less obvious issue emerged, one that appears again and again when serious incidents happen at sea: jurisdiction. Cruise ships operate under a legal framework that differs sharply from life on land. Authority is not defined by where a company is headquartered or where most passengers come from, but primarily by where the ship is registered, the flag it flies. This matters when something goes wrong. Cruise ships are often described as floating cities, but legally they function more like mobile territories. A vessel registered in one country may depart from another, sail through international waters, dock in several more, and carry passengers from dozens of nations, all on a single voyage. When an incident occurs, responsibility does not disappear, but it often fragments. The modern cruise industry is built on predictability: cabins cleaned daily, meals on schedule, emergencies managed out of sight. But beneath that promise, it's a complex legal structure designed to allow ships to move freely across borders with minimal interruption. Most major cruise lines are headquartered in the United States. Carnival Corporation is based in Florida. Royal Caribbean operates from Miami. Norwegian Cruise Line markets primarily to American travelers, yet many of their ships are registered elsewhere, commonly in countries such as the Bahamas, Panama, or Malta. This practice is legal and widely used across global shipping. It's known as operating under a flag of convenience. Registering a vessel in another country can reduce taxes and subject companies to different labor regimes. International safety standards still apply, but enforcement and oversight are largely handled by the flag state. That distinction becomes critical when a crime or death occurs on board. Under international maritime law, the primary authority to investigate incidents on a ship rests with the country whose flag it flies, even if the ship is far from that country, and even if most passengers are foreign nationals. In theory, this system establishes clear responsibility. In practice, investigations may be slow, limited, or conducted remotely. Flag states may have few resources to respond to incidents that occur thousands of miles away, involving non-citizens on ships owned by foreign corporations. As a result, the first response almost always comes from the cruise line itself. Cruise companies employ onboard security teams. They secure scenes. They collect initial statements. They manage surveillance footage. They prepare incident reports. They are legally required to notify authorities in many situations, and they say they do. But they are also the entities with the greatest financial and reputational exposure when something goes wrong. That overlap has drawn scrutiny for decades. In the early 2000s, US lawmakers began holding hearings after a series of high-profile incidents involving American passengers. Reports included sexual assaults on board, passengers disappearing overboard, and deaths whose causes were disputed by families. Some relatives said they were notified late. Others said they struggled to obtain records or understand how evidence had been handled. In response, Congress passed the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act in 2010. The law required cruise lines that embark or disembark passengers in US ports to report certain serious crimes to the FBI, install security features like peepholes and latches, and maintain public logs of reported incidents. The law increased transparency, but it did not eliminate jurisdictional limits. The FBI's authority depends on specific conditions, such as the nationality of the victim or suspect, or whether the crime has a substantial connection to the United States. Even when federal jurisdiction applies, investigators often cannot board a ship until it returns to port, sometimes days later. That delay matters, because the earliest hours after an incident are when evidence is freshest and when key decisions are made. One of the most closely examined cruise ship disappearances occurred in March 2011. Rebecca Coriam was 24 years old. She was a crew member aboard the Disney Wonder, working in youth activities. One morning she failed to report for duty. Security footage later showed her on a phone call, visibly distressed. That was the last confirmed sighting. Her shoes were reportedly found near a crew-only pool. The ship was sailing near the coast of Mexico. It was registered in the Bahamas. Disney conducted an internal review and notified Bahamian authorities. No body was ever recovered. No official conclusion was reached. Rebecca's parents have publicly said they felt excluded from information and questioned how the investigation was handled. Disney has stated that it cooperated fully with authorities. More than a decade later, the case remains unresolved. That uncertainty is not unique. Investigations by outlets such as ProPublica and the Miami Herald have documented cases in which passengers reported sexual assaults on board and later described delayed responses, missing evidence, or confusion over which authority was responsible. Some passengers have said staff discouraged immediate outside reporting. Cruise lines deny this and say they comply with all reporting requirements. What remains clear is the structural conflict. The company responsible for the ship is also the first responder, the evidence custodian, the gatekeeper. Even when crimes are reported, prosecution is uncommon. FBI data collected under the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act shows that only a small percentage of reported cases result in arrests or charges. That does not mean incidents did not occur. It often means cases stalled because of jurisdictional limits, degraded evidence, or witnesses dispersed across countries. And sometimes, the most consequential incidents aren't crimes at all. They're accidents, fires, groundings, system failures, events where corporate decisions, regulatory boundaries, and technical oversight intersect. The Carnival Triumph fire prompted congressional hearings. Passengers testified about onboard conditions. Carnival apologized and compensated those affected. Investigations focused primarily on engineering and safety failures, the areas federal agencies are mandated to oversee. But no single authority examined the incident as a whole. The ship was Bahamian flagged. It sailed from a US port. It failed in international waters. Each jurisdiction addressed part of the event. No one oversaw all of it. This fragmentation is not accidental. It's the product of decades of international agreements designed to keep global shipping efficient and mobile. Most of the time, the system works. Until it doesn't. When someone disappears. When someone is assaulted. When a death raises questions no one can fully answer. Crew members face additional risks. Many come from countries with limited legal resources. Their contracts often require arbitration instead of court proceedings. Reporting an incident can jeopardize future employment. Advocacy groups have documented cases in which crew members alleged assaults or unsafe conditions and later said they were pressured to resign or repatriated quietly. Cruise lines say they protect whistleblowers and follow international labor standards, but the power imbalance is real. A single worker, far from home, on a ship that may never return to their country. None of this means cruising is inherently dangerous. Millions of passengers sail every year without incident. But the system is not built around worst-case scenarios. It is built around efficiency, and when worst cases do occur, passengers and families often discover how limited their leverage is. Reporting rules exist. Crime logs are public. Reforms have been made, yet fundamental questions remain. Who investigates when a crime happens at sea? Who preserves evidence? Who decides whether something is an accident or something more? When a ship loses power, it becomes a logistical crisis. When a person disappears, it becomes a legal one. And too often, responsibility is divided so thinly that accountability fades. The ship keeps moving, through water, through borders, through law. And for those left behind, waiting for answers, that drift can last a lifetime.